Alyssa Thomas just dropped a statement that has Fever fans asking serious questions about Stephanie White's coaching system. After exposing how Phoenix knew Indiana's plays before they happened, the debate around Caitlin Clark's future has exploded.
This is what Alyssa Thomas said. It's a huge advantage, like you said. We played, 2 years under White? Everything is pretty much the same stuff. Defense, offense, we know everything they're about to do. She stated we know everything they about to do. Now, we told you guys, Stephanie White and her assistants brought the Connecticut Sun offense to Indiana. That's why she's not letting Caitlin Clark play her game. She only knows one style of basketball, and it doesn't work for this team.
Alyssa Thomas had a lot to say after the Phoenix Mercury's win over Indiana. And when she spoke, people paid attention. What she shared wasn't a rumor or a commentator's opinion. It came from her own experience. As someone who knows Stephanie White's system extremely well, Thomas offered an insider's perspective that changed the conversation and surprised the basketball world.
To play against her, how much of an advantage is it to sort of have an understanding of what she likes to run on both sides of the ball?
Huge advantage. I mean, like you said, we played, 2 years? Everything's pretty much the same. So defense, offense, we know everything they're about to do.
Thomas spoke openly and didn't try to soften her words. She said that playing against the Indiana Fever under Stephanie White gave Phoenix a major advantage. Having played for White for 2 seasons with the Connecticut Sun, Thomas knows the coach's system inside and out. She explained that many of the Fever's offensive and defensive strategies are still very familiar to her. As Thomas put it, everything is pretty much the same. Defense, offense, we know what they're about to do. Her comments suggested that Phoenix was well prepared because they already understood many of Indiana's tendencies before the game even started.
I think it's time for you Stephanie White loving supporters, apologists. I think it's time for y'all to admit that this sports talk is right. She gotta go. She gotta go. We lose the same way every time, but this time they lost really bad. Everybody was bad. Every single player was bad tonight. Every single player. But what was the worst player?
That wasn't a polite criticism or the kind of comment coaches usually brush off. It was a veteran player openly saying that Stephanie White's system has changed very little over the years. According to Alyssa Thomas, the plays, defensive schemes, and offensive sets were all familiar because she had already spent 2 seasons playing under White in Connecticut. That familiarity allowed Phoenix to anticipate much of what Indiana wanted to do on the court. In Thomas's view, it felt like she had already seen the game plan before the game even started. She recognized the actions, the screens, the defensive rotations, and the plays coming out of timeouts. That level of familiarity gave Phoenix a significant edge and raised questions about whether Indiana's system has become too predictable, even with a star like Caitlin Clark on the roster.
Thomas as a hub is all the same damn thing, bro. Stephanie White is to blame, bro. This is what Alyssa Thomas said, bro. This is what Alyssa Thomas said, bro.
The impact of that familiarity showed up on the scoreboard. Phoenix dominated Indiana, winning by 35 points, while Alyssa Thomas recorded a triple-double. The argument being made is simple. When a player already knows the opponent's tendencies, every possession becomes easier to defend. If a defender can anticipate where the ball is going, where cutters will move, and what play is coming next, she can react faster and disrupt the offense before it develops. Thomas had spent years in Stephanie White's system with Connecticut, so many of Indiana's actions looked familiar to her. As a result, Phoenix appeared prepared for much of what the Fever wanted to run offensively. Critics would point to this game as evidence that Indiana's system may have become too predictable. Their claim is that if former players can still recognize and anticipate the same sets years later, opposing teams gain a significant advantage. In that view, the Fever's struggles were not just about execution but also about a lack of adjustments and evolution within the system itself. Whether that interpretation is completely fair is open to debate, but the result was clear. Phoenix controlled the game from start to finish, and Thomas's knowledge of the system became a major storyline after the final buzzer.
I just thought they were the hungrier team. I thought that they played with a
relentless, effort, a relentless pursuit to get to what they wanted, to be disruptive on defense, to get to their spots on offense. I thought their competitive spirit was better than ours.
And Caitlin had 3 assists in the first 3 minutes of the game, then both her and Aaliyah checked out, I think.
Stephanie White has heard these criticisms before. Whenever questions come up about her coaching decisions, offensive system, or relationship with Caitlin Clark, her response is usually similar. She points to the normal challenges that come with competition and argues that many of the stories surrounding the team receive extra attention because of Clark's popularity. After Indiana's loss to Portland on June 1st, a game in which Clark scored just 6 points and the Fever lost by 16, White acknowledged that the team struggled and needed to improve. However, many critics felt that her comments did not fully address the bigger concern. Why does the team's approach often look the same regardless of the opponent or game situation? Those questions grew louder as fans analyzed the game footage. During timeouts and breaks in play, Clark's body language became a topic of discussion. Some observers believed she looked frustrated, interpreting her reactions as signs of dissatisfaction with how the team was performing. Critics argue that Indiana's offense is not maximizing Clark's unique talents. They believe she is one of the most dynamic offensive players in basketball and that the system should be built more heavily around her strengths, including her shooting range, playmaking ability, and fast-paced style of play. Supporters of White would argue that basketball is more complicated than simply designing every possession around one player. However, critics remain convinced that Indiana's offense has become too predictable and that opposing teams are increasingly comfortable defending it. Their concern is that unless the system evolves, the Fever may continue to face the same problems against top competition.
Allen, handoff Clark for the tie. Yes! Caitlin Clark has tied the game with under 2 seconds left to play. 22 has done it again.
What makes this debate so frustrating for many fans is that Caitlin Clark's talent has never been the issue. She has already shown multiple times that she can take over games and carry Indiana when the moment demands it. One of the best examples came earlier this season against the Washington Mystics. With Indiana trailing by 9 points in the fourth quarter, Clark sparked a comeback almost by herself. She knocked down 5 three-pointers in the final period, finished with 32 points and 8 assists, and hit a clutch game-tying shot with just 3.1 seconds remaining to force overtime. Performances like that remind everyone why Clark is considered a generational talent. When she gets into rhythm, she can overcome tough defenses, difficult matchups, and adverse situations through pure skill and determination. The criticism from some observers is not about Clark's ability but about whether the overall system consistently puts her in the best position to succeed. Their argument is that while Clark can rescue a team for a few minutes with individual brilliance, winning consistently requires an offense that creates advantages throughout the entire game. A player can carry a team for stretches, but basketball is a full 40-minute battle. Critics believe Indiana needs more creativity, more adjustments, and a system that evolves from game to game. Otherwise, they fear the team will continue relying on Clark's late-game heroics to solve problems that should have been addressed much earlier.
Caitlin, reminder you guys, had 17 points in the fourth quarter and she had 5 threes in the fourth quarter. That is unheard of. This bothered me so much. This stopped me in my tracks. I was like, wow. Of all things, you have a player in Caitlin Clark who played 13 games last season. She has talked about how hard that was on her mentally, how hard that was on her trying to battle back from these injuries. She was in a shooting slump last season. The first 2 games, she was also in a shooting slump. Everybody's saying she's washed, she's not as good, she's overhyped, calling her Jeremy Lin, all of this kind of stuff. And she goes off in the fourth quarter and she's the only reason that you are in this game. She was the reason. She made that 3 with 2 seconds left on the clock to tie up the score that ultimately sent them into overtime. That was Caitlin Clark who hit that 3. She does all of this, and you have a chance. You have a chance to praise her.
Critics point to moments like these as part of a larger pattern. After Caitlin Clark's standout performances, they expected stronger public praise from Stephanie White. Instead, White often focused on the team as a whole, emphasizing collective effort and contributions from multiple players rather than singling out one individual. Supporters of White would argue that this is a common coaching approach designed to keep the focus on team basketball. However, some fans believe Clark's biggest performances deserve more direct recognition. especially when she plays a major role in key victories. When those concerns are combined with Alyssa Thomas's comments about Indiana's system, the viral clips of Clark's visible frustration on the sideline, and the lopsided loss to Phoenix, critics see more than just separate incidents. They view them as connected signs of deeper issues within the team's structure and direction. From that perspective, the concern is not simply about one game, one interview, or one coaching decision. The concern is whether Indiana is fully maximizing the talents of its franchise player. Fans who hold this view believe Clark should be at the center of a more flexible and creative system built around her unique strengths. Whether that criticism is fair remains a matter of debate, but it explains why discussions about Stephanie White, Caitlin Clark, and the Fever's future have become some of the most closely watched conversations in women's basketball.